Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining today for a speaker series. I want to introduce first the GIMI Institute group here. So we have Julia Kaminskaite, that I'm going to let you introduce yourself right now. And you have myself, Maria Puling, which I'm also a business developer in GIMI Institute. And Julia, go ahead and please introduce yourself to our members.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this great webinar today with this great foundation. So I'm Julia, and I am a business developer manager at GIMI Institute. And so if you have any concerns about the innovation management certification, I am the first person to talk about that.
Perfect. Thank you, Julia. So guys, welcome everyone. Here on stage today, we have Christina and Heather, who are going to be presenting to us about Rural Synergy Foundation. Both of them are the co-founders of Rural Synergy Foundation, and they're going to talk a little bit more about how they found the great initiative of building that bridge and that closing that gap between rural and urban areas, and to further develop economic sustainability. And so they have a lot of great insights, great stories for you guys to learn and to know. And please feel free to ask any questions you guys have, any comments, suggestions, anything. We have the chat box here to the side that's going to be opened, and then Julia and I both are going to be ready to give those questions to them so that they can provide further feedback and further insights for you guys to learn. So that being said, it's going to be more or less like a 40 to 45-minute session. And you guys, again, towards the end, we're going to see if you guys have more questions, and then we're going to have more time to answer those towards the end. So that being said, Christina and Heather, unfortunately, Heather is having troubles with her camera, but Christina, oh, I see Heather. Perfect. Hi, Heather. We can see Heather now with the camera there. And so we have both Christina and Heather here on the stage now, and you guys can take over as soon as you're ready. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Christina Schwanke, and I am one of the co-founders of the Rural Synergy Foundation. And today we are going to talk about the challenges that we are seeing in rural communities, and we're also going to talk about how we are addressing some of the problems and how rural populations are diminishing and more people are moving to urban areas, and how we are working to create economic sustainability in rural communities. So Heather, if you want to tell us where you started.
Yeah, so I think Christina and I wanted to share a little bit about ourselves, just so you know who we are and where our passion comes from this work that we're doing. Both of us grew up in a very rural community, Cedarville, California, population 800, and went to high school together and then went on our ways. And both of us went to college, and then I moved back to the area that I grew up from, and we worked there for like 8 years, and then the last 5 years I moved to San Francisco. And in that move, I realized that there are a ton of resources out there that is not necessarily, there's a huge gap between urban and rural. And when I started to really look into a lot more of the complexities of what's happening, I realized that a lot of this has to do with the technology shift, and we'll get more into that. But for me personally, I grew up in such an amazing space and capacity, values, and I don't want to see that lost at all. And so I have a great depth and passion for these rural communities. And my background really is in education, youth development, and nonprofit work. And so Christina, would you share a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so I left the rural community that Heather and I grew up in, which was a town of 800 people, to go to college and get an education. And I ended up in Southern California and got a degree in business administration with the emphasis in public relations, and started working in corporate America doing public relations for companies such as Microsoft, Rose's Mojitos, and Warner Brothers, and just realized that I didn't really want to be in an urban area. And so I ended up moving to a small town called Bishop, California, where I met my husband, and we were really trying to figure out like how to start a life together. And I assumed since I had an education, I would be able to find work and we could build together. And what we really found was that there was no opportunity for us in our rural community to, even get out of poverty. And that was with me having a bachelor's degree and him having a really great career. So we ended up forcibly getting moved to North Dakota because we couldn't find the work. And I don't know how much anybody knows about what went on there in the past decade, but basically they found oil and figured out a way to extract it. So it created a huge economic boom in these really tiny North Dakota areas. And it drew people from all over the country. And James and I were there, and he started doing an apprenticeship to build power lines, and most of the work was construction, but I ended up getting hired by a man to do power line design, staking consulting, and right-of-way consulting, and had zero experience. And he took me under his wing, and he taught me how to do all of those things. And I ended up putting in millions upon millions of dollars of infrastructure in for companies like ConocoPhillips, XDO, Verizon, and it was just like, it was a great experience. And the best part of the experience was that I learned something that I had zero background in and became really, really good at it. And people around me doing the same thing. And so now that we came back to Reno, my husband has a great career here, but I'm looking around seeing that a lot of people are really missing out on what is the new economy, technology, software, software engineering, anything that has to do with that. And a lot of rural communities are missing out on these things too. And so I've been a stay-at-home mom for the past 3 years and realized that with the experience that I had out in North Dakota, combined with my education and other experience, my consulting experience and my corporate experience, we could really create something that made a difference and an impact for rural communities in California and Nevada specifically, but hopefully nationwide in the next 5 years. So now we just want to talk to you about some of the challenges that our communities are facing in the US. Heather.
Heather, you're
Great.
muted.
There we go. Yes.
Oh.
Thank you. Gotta remember that. So a few things that we've known internally, but as we have gone through this process and we've learned a lot more about statistics and just understanding so much more of what is happening in rural communities. And so just reading a little bit of that, these decrease in job opportunities, it comes a lot across the board in the last probably 30 years due to a lot of commercialization, automation, and just a recession over time. It hits rural communities a lot harder. And the commercialization piece has a lot to do with ranching and farming, is that as these smaller family-owned farms and companies, they have to sell off because of these larger commercialized organizations coming in. And so they find themselves competing with something that they can't compete with. So there's one. Automation, it just eliminates jobs all across the board, which that's the way our society is moving now. So we've got to adjust to that. And then recessions. Everybody gets hit by a recession. In a rural community, it just hits a lot harder. So we've seen a lot of decrease in jobs and then also population decline. So what happens is that when technology hits also, people are spending money outside of their community. They're online shopping. They might drive someplace because it's cheaper. They might, because they want to shop at Walmart or something like that. And what happens is that those smaller stores and organizations in the community are not being able to sustain themselves because dollars are being spent outside of the community. And then there's less jobs. So it goes back to that. And so people leave. And in the last 100 years, population has dropped from 54% in rural communities to now 19% in rural communities. And the thing that we need to remember is that rural communities are essentially the backbone of our society that houses all of our food production, it houses our water, a lot of our recreational activities, and we need to really begin to think about how we're taking care of them. The other piece that occurs is schools and funding. So less population, there's less kids in the schools, which means that there's less funding. And what happens there is that you have less teachers, they have to then spread themselves more thin. Their education, they might not get as many extracurricular activities or opportunities to access to other inventive ways of learning about life and how to grow in their own capacity. Of course, I'll keep going on about that piece because it's my passion. And then healthcare, right? So we also look at how do individuals in rural communities actually access healthcare? Do they have health insurance, but also access to, is it a clinic or is it a hospital? These hospitals are closing because they don't even have enough people in the area to stay open, which means that elderly and any emergencies, it can take twice as long to get. Sometimes they have to be flown out because the closest hospital is maybe an hour away. And same with the schools, right? If they have to close some of these schools, which is happening in our small town, some of these kids are being bused 45 minutes to an hour away, just one way to school. So these are just in general some of the rural challenges that we're experiencing and that we're seeing across the nation.
Yeah, I just want to chime in on the health access. I think when you like talk about it and you think about going to a doctor, for a lot of us who are healthy or have never experienced an emergency, it really doesn't sound like that big of a deal. But the health access in these rural communities can really mean life or death. And as an example, I was driving home from our community. I was driving from Surprise Valley, California to Reno, Nevada, and we turned a corner and a cattle truck had flipped over right in front of us. And there was the man that was driving the cattle truck was hanging upside down out of his cattle truck with a broken femur. And we were able to call 911, thankfully, because we had cell service kind of close. And we had to stand there. I held his head and another man held his leg for over an hour waiting for emergency transport to even get there. And so when he hung there, we were not sure if it had hit his carotid artery, if he was going to die, if he was going to live, and he had to hang there like basically in shock for that long. And one of the things that we realize is that where that ambulance came from, that hospital could very well be shut down this year. So, which means that the next time or if something like that happens again, that person will have to wait almost another hour to get emergency services to them. So it's a huge, and that is not an isolated thing. I mean, a lot of jobs in rural areas are in construction or farming, which are some of the most dangerous jobs that you can have. So not only is it is it a industry out in these rural communities is more prone to accidents, but now they're going to have any care much farther away. And I mean, the data kind of speaks for itself. I think when you look at poverty and job growth in America, and I think that one of the things for Heather and I that's really important to point out is that poverty in rural areas, when we talk about poverty, it's really the working poor. It's a lot of people that hold bachelor's and master's degrees, they put in 40 to 60 hours a week and they are still living in poverty because the resources just aren't available to them in those communities, not because they are unequipped to do the jobs. And then you can see that the job growth in America from the recession it's been much, urban areas have had so many more of their jobs come back than rural areas.
And one thing I would like to add here in terms of the job growth, rural communities are on the foundation of many different economies. One major one is farming and ranching. It's not the only one, it is one. And I was looking at some data and statistics and found that over the last, I would say, I think 50 years, there's been an increase in production in farming products, and there's been a drastic decrease in jobs in those rural communities. And so you're looking at this, you're like thinking, how is this possible? But that's why when we talk about this, that has a lot to do with the commercialization and automation. And so how are we as rural communities who this has been a part of our life for the last 100 to 300 years, and for each of these families, how do we support them in transitioning with the rest of the US, and how does that look? And I just find that was really a stark difference of increase in productivity and a decrease in jobs.
So I think when Heather and I started talking, one of the things that we found super exciting is that her and I are starting a nonprofit at a really crazy time, because the reality is a lot of jobs in the US are getting filled, and there's less job vacancies, and there's more of a skills gap. But also, for the first time in history, technology is making it where geographic separation for rural communities is pretty much irrelevant. And it's allowing for businesses really to utilize the untapped labor market that is in rural America, and the hardworking and educated people that are being underutilized or unutilized at this point. So basically what Rural Synergy Foundation does is we take the rural labor market on the journey from where they're at, and we reskill them for the new economy. This helps rural communities regain vibrance. It helps residents gain skills for the new economy, and it also really helps urban areas because it fulfills the jobs that don't demand a sustainable urban salary. So, I mean, for those of you living in New York or San Francisco, you know that $20 an hour doesn't even scratch the surface for you to even get an apartment. But $20 an hour in rural America could be enough for you to buy a house. So that's our goal, and that's our mission, is to really help both areas. So our model is a pretty simple one, and it is taken from the construction industry. It is modeled after apprenticeships that are for power linemen or plumbers or whoever, but we're actually implementing the apprenticeship model for rural areas in tech jobs. And so we engage rural talent. Heather and I have several partnerships within 3 rural counties and spreading that have access to people that are job ready, that have skills, and we engage with those people. Then our model is to employ them and into a paid apprenticeship and take them on the journey of retraining them so that they can learn soft skills such as communication, critical thinking, and hard skills such as Salesforce, SQL, Microsoft Office. And then we provide a value-added service to companies. Basically, we are acting as a staff augmentation and consulting firm. And so we add a service to urban companies seeking talent to grow their businesses. And meanwhile, we grow our business so that we create sustainability for our foundation so that we can further train and employ and retrain and grow individuals.
And I do want to add just one quick thing is that as we go into one community and work with them as a community as a whole, a lot of the resources that we have left over in terms of funds or whatever we have also goes back into that community. So it's not just a profit for us, but it's also a profit for the community, such as like support for education or the healthcare system.
Yes.
So just a quick question.
Yeah.
Going back to that one. So here there's a question regarding engaging the rural talent. So basically, asking more like how is it that that works? Is it like people just go there and say they have talent? Like how does it work in terms of really getting that talented people in those rural areas?
So we have a couple of funnels for that. And the first one is that um, we already have relationships in several rural communities, and we know several people that are already ready to go to work. So, and that's more just word of mouth, where we've either have known them personally or have found them through people as our foundation has grown. Secondly, we do work with the school districts and the counties, the government portion of the counties, to reach people that are qualified to do what we need them to do. So one example is the Inyo County School Superintendent. She has talked to us about several people who have graduated high school, gone on to college, and have ended up back in town, and have they have an education, but they don't really have the desire or the ability to survive in urban America. So their skills are being underutilized. And so she has connections to those people, and will refer them to us. And then the other partnership that we are working on growing is with the community colleges, with the people that are going there to find people that are already engaging in education. Did you want to add anything, Heather?
Yeah, I'll just recap really fast. So there's about three ways that we're engaging rural talent. One of those is through our own personal connections and just knowing individuals. So that's individual to individual and word of mouth. The other is that our partnerships with nonprofits who work a lot with different community members, and also letting them know of our process and what we're doing. And that allows another funnel, like Christina was saying. And then the educational system. Some of it might be with the high school, and some of it might be with college levels. So those three pieces are how we are engaging rural talent.
Great, thank you. And there's another question here. So in terms of like once you distinguish and you find those people that have the talent, then when you go to the second step of the step of the employment, they're asking like how is it that you make that connection like, specifically with the company? Is it that they look for someone specifically, or like how does that match happen?
So we are actually we are the company that they are getting matched to. So we are providing services to companies as far as whether it be data entry or all the way up to data analytics. We provide services to companies, and they hire us as a third-party vendor so we can directly employ the rural talent.
So essentially, we're a consulting organization that will consult and do the work for that company. And then we hire the individuals.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering those questions. You can proceed. Thank you very much.
So we believe that this model has 4 distinct strengths. The first one is that we operate as a nonprofit, so that people no longer have to choose between acquiring skills or acquiring a paycheck, and that alleviates the poverty trap. If you think back to the graphs that we showed in the beginning about the workers in poverty, a lot of times what you get in rural communities is people that are working 2 jobs to even sustain themselves. And a lot of the models right now that are out there for workforce development and training, they don't offer a paycheck with it. So these people, they don't really have the time or the resources to sit down and learn a new skill that they don't even know how they could utilize it in the end. And so we just take that barrier out altogether, and as a nonprofit. Um, the second part is that we firmly believe that without training and hands-on experience, workforce development is really not as effective as it could be. You have to have real world experience to grow in the ways in a sustainable way where your career gets better, you get more developed. And so we believe that with the training and hands-on experience, we can offer people a much clearer path to career success than to just throw classes at them. But because we are approaching this as a business model, we do believe in merit-based growth, and that we are giving people an opportunity to grow professionally, and we're providing them a standard so that they have a place to grow to. And we pride ourselves on doing the best work possible, because the reality is that we make sure that this is something that is valuable to not just the rural communities, but to the urban people and the urban companies that utilize our services. And then the fourth thing, which Heather and I are very passionate about, is giving a value added service. Like, I think that there's a lot of nonprofits out there doing really great things. I think that we can also help the economy and provide a resource while helping other people, and that really spurs us on to keep pursuing this. Did you have anything to add, Heather?
No, I think you covered it.
All right.
So our current status and where we're at with our foundation is that we have partnerships in 3 counties. So they're Enyo, Mono, and Modoc County. And those partnerships, like Christina had already mentioned, some of them are with nonprofits. Some of them are, well, actually most all of them are with nonprofits. And then we also have participants that are committed to getting started and are ready for that work. And these participants range from all different levels. They can have master's degrees, and some of them are had just graduated from high school. So there's a range. We have a high interest in participation, which honestly, we did a really short, quick survey and in these different communities, and we found that there was more interest than we had anticipated, which is exciting for us because we realize that we are on the right track and that we know that this is a high need area. So
I just want to chime in. Though our services are available to everybody, we're really excited too, because most of the people that are committed to our program are women, because a lot of rural communities, the work is very labor intensive and there's not a lot of opportunity for women. So we are also really excited to empower women in rural communities as well. But that's just really an added bonus. Sorry.
Well, no, it's okay. I'm glad you said that, because the other piece too that oftentimes people don't realize is that, like Christina said, is that a lot of these jobs that are in rural communities are labor intensive, which a lot of times it's the men that are doing it. It's just the way society is sometimes. And we have women that are either taking care of the ranch on a different level, they do bookkeeping, they do all different things. Or maybe they have a store, they're owner of a store and it closed. They have these skills that are high skills, and they could be doing so much good for other organizations. They just don't know how to get to those organizations. And so our role really is to tap into those talents and to support them in continuation so that they can live the life that they want. And so a lot of them end up being women. We also want to make sure that we support any, like Christina said, open to anybody. Priority also would be focused on women, veterans, and anyone who is wanting the work and the jobs. So I wanted to move into, this is an exciting thing that Christina has really taken the lead on. And I don't know if anybody has ever heard of IDEO. It's an organization that is, they're not necessarily a direct funder, but they help fund organizations with platforms of new innovation and really a lot of beginning ideas. You want to say more, Christina?
Sure. OpenIDEO is actually the nonprofit half of a design firm. They have designed everything right down to the first Apple mouse. They help organizations with design thinking and to create solutions that will change the world. And we applied with our idea in May. There were 700 applications, and we were very excited to find out last month that we were picked to be among the top 50 to help for them to help us further refine our idea, but also at the chance of funding. And I think that it speaks volumes that when you have 700 ideas that our one could be picked among the top 50 for, I mean, we see it as being competitive with some of the most innovative ideas on earth, which is super exciting. So that has really helped our idea move forward, and not only just helped our idea move forward, but it has really given us a lot of fuel to keep moving. And of course, we always hope for the funding, but we've really been excited as to how much we've grown since being chosen.
Yep, so our idea is that we'll be able to hopefully receive the grant. And if not, we can still do our model and move forward. It's just very, very helpful to have those support tools and funding. So one of the things before we end, we just want to make sure that everyone understands what our ask is. And since you have a general idea of where we're at, one of the major pieces that we are looking for is contract leads. And so that is really working with and connecting to companies and corporations that may need employment or that do need employment and can be done remotely. And so looking for any of those leads is a huge ask. The second one is professional mentorship. This is a space that Christina and we know that we're merging our nonprofit background and experience. Christina has more in the professional field than I do, but just really that mentorship piece is a huge component. We know that we're going into a space that is slightly new to us, but we're extremely excited. And so any support in that area. And then our third piece is donations and sponsorships. And donations explains for itself, right? Any donations is really supportive. It helps us with either starting of employment for people as well as us in being able to help move the work forward faster. And then sponsorship piece comes in many different forms. One of the ways is that we are starting to work with Salesforce. And so becoming certified with Salesforce costs. And so if anybody is willing to be a sponsor for us to do that, that is would be a huge help. So there's many different areas. Christina, do you have any other pieces or you wanted to add?
No, we're super excited, and I'd have to say we've had people just rally around us since the beginning. And I think as far as the professional mentorship piece, like Heather said, this is, her background's in education. Mine is in consulting, but construction consulting. So we are just really hoping to keep the momentum going of people being excited to just help us move forward, because this is going to happen. We don't really have a choice but to start helping rural communities. So.
And when we did our survey of like individuals that be interested or need the employment, we had responses from 11 different states that are interested. And so that told us that it's a speed to market type of situation. And so the faster that we can get one model down to figure out what works, and every community is going to be different. But it was really exciting. And Christina and I do this, and we're doing it no matter what. Any support is super helpful. I work full-time. Christina's a full-time mom. She has to pay a babysitter in order to do this work. And so it's money coming out of her pocket right now. So anyway, with that, not a sad story. It's actually quite exciting. We've come a long ways together, and we work really well together. And we're excited that we could be here.
Yeah. So
Perfect.
if you guys want to get sorry, you can find us at www. If you want to find us, you can find us at www.ruralsf.org. You can email me at cschwanke@ruralsf.org, and feel free to text or call me at 310-409-3839 if you'd like to dig deeper into this.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much, Christina and Heather. We appreciate your time here today. And so there's some interesting questions we have here for you guys to answer. And first of all, I want to congratulate you as well on being one of the top winners in IDEO. So please, first of all, we would like to know a little bit more about what was one of those things that really helped you move forward from that program that you said, because of this, we're able to reach that. So what would be one experience you received there?
Through Open IDEO.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So Open IDEO. I am such a nerd about stuff like this, but Open IDEO was a really exciting thing for us because you put your grant application basically on an open platform, and people get to look at it and ask questions. And we've had probably 40 different people just come through and challenge us and encourage us and push us forward. Everything from somebody in Idaho offering to help us move our program up there. We had a grant writer that works on an incredible organization called Maji Mamas, which they help women in Africa. They help women in Africa, and they speak at the UN, and it's an incredible thing, but she is a grant writer, and so she came through and helped us to really articulate what we were doing more. We've found great inspiration from people who do help girls with coding, to people who train low-income workers for language, and so it really helps us to think outside the box. So that's the first really exciting thing. The second exciting thing is I feel like when you're starting a business, you're just running at it as like crazy as you can. You're just trying to get everything done. And they really set it up for you like, okay, this is how you engage, your end users. This is how you engage experts. And so they really put us on a journey of articulating and redefining, and it gave us a reason to contact more people, and it gave us more of a voice. And so that is one of the ways that it really moved us forward, is it just started a conversation with so many people, and that's in some of the ways how we got in contact with Salesforce in a roundabout way, and nonprofits in other states. It's just been a really incredible journey. So I hope that answers the question. I got a little too excited.
Oh, definitely. And I see Heather, do you want to add something, or?
Yeah, one of the things too is that it really, some of the questions that they asked in the second round pushed us to actually get individual user feedback, which is what made us go into that space of doing the survey, to really understanding who does need a job and who does want a job. And so I would say that was a huge shift for us, is that we knew it was out there, but we hadn't gotten to that space of really reaching out to specific individuals on a broader space. Maybe it was one-on-one conversations. So I felt like that was a really good shift.
I also think it's interesting because, I think that, and I feel everybody could relate to this, like when you're watching the news and you're reading articles and um, you're not really engaging with people, but more statistics, you really miss out on some of the intricacies of the human experience. And so we made some assumptions about who our end users would be. Like, I mean, we didn't realize how many women are in rural communities with a bachelor's degree or higher that are either completely underutilized or or not tapped at all. Like they're not working. So I think that, and we really assumed that we were people just right out of high school or without an education. And we also found just a lot of people with really great work backgrounds that were no longer working. And so that was, I think, when you start looking at the statistics, you make assumptions, and when you really dig in, you realize much greater things. And so OpenIDEO did help us a lot with that.
Their approach is human-centered, which really makes us be more human-centered and think about the person.
Amazing. And I really think something that's great is that you actually went and tapped into the market and did those surveys that brought you guys results from people talking back to you, right? Mm-hmm. And it's something that a best practice innovation consulting in general is really to go out there, and if you think your target market is A or B or C, and actually talk to them and say, like, listen, if I offer you this option, would you be willing to take it? Would you like, what would you change about it? And so by having those types of suggestions or feedback from them, it helps you make your business model stronger and then make it move forward, right? So that's great, and experience definitely. Must be very proud of being there, one of the top winners, and definitely gives you more confidence in terms of pushing forward, right? And so another question that was brought up here is regarding women. So you were saying that you discovered that women were really a big percentage of the market. So do you have any like statistic or like what was really the reason why you realized so many women were interested, and how did you take that approach in terms of the woman side of it, of the markets?
So the statistic is that it was 95% of women, or the people who were interested in utilizing our program were 95% women. And I think that one of the, like we said, the big reasons for that was that so many jobs in rural communities are labor intensive. And then the second thing really is, and it's interesting if you start digging on it, is in recent years, women are really stepping up and saying, like, I can't work a 60-hour week. I can't work a 50-hour week. Like, I need to balance my life. And so a lot of the women, I would say half, were really wanting a flexible or part-time schedule, and the other half were willing to work full-time. And so I think that's the other thing is like, um, women just have different needs than men, and that's something that we as an organization could accommodate. Yeah, and I think that the other part of it is that, when you have a woman that's, let's say, married to a rancher and she has to be on the ranch just in case something happens, or she has to feed at 10 o'clock in the morning, it's not super conducive for her to go get a job in town. And so she misses out on the market. So if she can start work at 11 and work till 6, it gives her the freedom to still be the valuable part of her lifestyle, without sacrificing her career.
Heather, do you have something else to add?
Nope, I was agreeing.
It's impressive to see 95% of them were women and interested women, right? And so as you were saying, right, many of them are back in the ranch maybe, and they might stay home, and they might be willing to have this experience of working, and they don't have access to it, right? And so mainly most of them must be interested in, but they don't know how to do it, or they don't know who to approach and how to take it from there, right? So it's really a great initiative to get women excited as well to be part of the program. And so this leads up to the next question that we had here. It is regarding technology in that sense. For example, if someone is in a ranch and for example, me, Maria, I'm in a ranch and I really want to be part of this, and I want to work for a specific company and you help me make the match, but they require, let's say I want to work remotely, what about if I don't have a computer or something, or internet access? All of those technical barriers that might be in between the person and the possibility of a job. How do you manage those gaps between the company and the person that would like to work for them?
Yeah. So
I love that question. And that is a question we have been addressing. So the first thing is that in our survey, our biggest concern was that people in rural communities wouldn't have access to internet. And I think that we hear a lot about certain regions that don't, and they do exist in the United States. But within California and Nevada, internet is widely available. Most people have access. The hardest part of it may be, or according to our end users, the most concerning part was the affordability. But as our end users, every one of them had internet access. So they were thinking of other people. But so affordability is the biggest piece of it, and that is a hurdle that's easy to navigate. The second part of it is our partnerships with nonprofits, the school districts, the counties. They've all verbally committed to us that they will help us on some level um, with providing computers or internet or resources. So we have one partner that will even let somebody come into the office and sit in the office and work if they want somewhere else to come. The school district has talked about providing training space and computers. One of our big attractions to Salesforce is that you don't have to be super like beyond technology efficient. So basic necessities will fulfill fulfill the needs of that. And then as we grow and gain more sustainability and diversify our offerings, we'll be better funded and suited to offer more I don't even know the word, like a higher level of resources to our participants.
Yeah. And I also think that one of the neat things is that through this process, we've connected with other individuals that are working on that broadband concern and issue. And I know that's essentially, I think, what Christina was saying at the end was that as we go in and work with these different communities and individuals and we learn more about their needs, we also are growing our resources and our resource bank of knowing what we can bring in and what we can connect them to. And so being able to say, hey, this is an area that really does need more broadband and more internet access. We'd like to connect you to the right people in this community to talk to them. Or it can be many different levels, but that was the one thing that our survey with our end user was a surprising piece, is that they had internet, they just didn't, it might have been access to the internet because of cost. It wasn't that it wasn't there, but it was the cost factor. So Christina and I have talked about that as a participant, how do we support them? Is it maybe that it's a stipend in the beginning as they're going through the training program and getting that up and going? So there's a lot of different variations that we've looked at.
Okay, great. No, great to know, because that's also something that's something important to consider, right? Because
Yeah.
access, some people might really not even be close to having anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's good to know that you're collaborating basically with nonprofits or educational organizations that are either offering that they can go over and use their computers, or vice versa, or give them a computer, or basically you have a backup in terms of like they really would like to support you. So it's something great to push forward, because I would guess that would be a big limitation in terms of connecting the dots, right? And in that sense.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so great. And one other question that was coming up here was regarding the training. So they were asking, did you outsource the training, or when you were saying like third second blog that you were saying helping training, how does it work? So if you want to help train these people, do you want a third party involved, or more people to join the program to become trainers themselves, or what is really the training aspect of it?
Well, I think that, so the first answer to this is that we are still working through how that will look. on a complete level. But that being said, first part of it is the work training, and we are going to initially be the guinea pigs of our own project and train people to do the work. So I'll learn it, I'll train people, and then when we get people up to speed enough, our goal is to have trainers in each rural community that can train the other people as far as what the work is. Secondly, for the soft skills, we are going to utilize, at this point, we will be utilizing different resources.
Modules.
So we'll find things that we like as far as classes go, either through Coursera or Khan Academy, and require those. Again, our other attraction to the Salesforce model is they already have their hard skill training in there. And then the third part is that our connections to nonprofits allow us to have in-person training as far as other soft skills. So connecting with nonprofits that offer financial literacy courses, or writing courses, resumes, all of that stuff. We're working on those partnerships to make our apprenticeship model completely well-rounded.
Great. And in terms of training, now that you say it, so it's really training on coding, for example, or marketing and all of those hard skills. Is that really what the training is about?
It's going to be a soft skill, life skill, and hard skill training. So for instance, if you take somebody that wants to eventually be a data analyst, as an example, like they need to learn basic statistics, they need to learn communication skills, just to name a couple, and then they need hard skills. So they're going to need to know Microsoft Office, Excel, SQL. They're going to have to know those skills, and then we really want to make sure that people have the other portion to it, which is, whether it's like financial literacy or health, to help round out what they're learning so that they can better utilize it.
Great. And last question I have on my end, and then I'll turn out to Julia if she has any on her end. But in terms of expansion, do you see this business model expanding to emerging markets, or how do you see your presence in the USA, or how is your feeling about the expansion? Obviously, right now, baby steps, so we're starting to like grow the company and everything, and it's getting everything to stick, right? But down the line, what is your vision in terms of expanding, and do you think this model could be replicated in emerging markets as well?
Yeah. So that on a day-to-day level, we have to keep ourselves in the baby steps and say, 10 jobs, 20 jobs, like work on that level. But we have people reaching out to us from, like Heather said earlier, there's 11 different states that people have showed interest from. We have organizations in Tennessee, Texas, and Idaho that we are actually working on an MOU in Tennessee. So there's such a high need for it, and Heather and I are so dedicated to this cause. I believe that this will grow exponentially in the first few years. And I have, like, I think we both have the fire of the big vision of being nationwide, hopefully in the next 10 years, because it's such a need.
And I think that, like Christina said, that we have to hold ourselves back because we have all of these different organizations that want to partner and want to get going. They're like, yes, we'll do the legwork, this and that. And like, well, we're piloting. We don't even let us pilot first. And so I think for Christina and I, we definitely feel the urgency across the board. And to be honest, I've had multiple individuals ask me more about it and when we're ready to go internationally. And I think there's a lot of different models and a lot of different organizations that are doing similar things internationally, but it's interesting to just see how many people are asking for our support. And so, yes, scaling nationally is our focus. And right now, California and Nevada is our focus.
And we want to make sure that we provide quality. You know, we want to make sure that we work out the kinks in the first year or two, or hopefully a lot of the kinks in the first year or two, because we want both our urban end users, the companies, and our rural end users, the people, to really have a great experience. And so, as excited as we are that we are gaining so much momentum, we also want to make sure that we're not sacrificing really who we are in that growth.
Of course, yeah. As I said, baby steps, right? First, and until everything's fixed, and then. But it's interesting to see because I know a model like this would be very effective in emerging markets as well, and so that's why there was a curiosity on that end. But thank you so much for all the insights on your questions. And I don't know, Julia, if you have any last question to wrap it up, or if
Yes,
that's
couple more questions. Actually, one question is just, I believe it was sort of answered, but still might be there, I hope, because we have now attended quite a few people from other countries. I see there are quite many people from Colombia, Guatemala, and so on. So they are very interested in what you're doing, and they are asking if there is a way to collaborate with you. If not exactly to collaborate, maybe they could reach out to you to get some piece of advice how to establish similar programs in their countries and their regions.
Yeah, I honestly, at this point, collaboration is great. We're not at that point to where we're able to scale. But I don't feel, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, but we're happy to share what we're doing now, and it can be taken by whoever to do whatever anywhere else, because we just know that there's a lot to be done.
This is great. And so maybe just to sum up what you have delivered for us today, thanks for that. Just to sum it up, could you name a few skills that you find very critical to have a very high standard of living in the rural areas in the USA? What are those critical skills to have?
So the first critical skill, which is more mindset, but it's the willingness to actually do something, right? And I think that's across the board. But the second skill is, and I think this is something that Christina and I have found that has shown up with other conversations with companies when we've talked about contracts. One of the biggest skills is actually communication skills, and how do you engage with each other, and what does that look like? Are you personable? And if you have that, you can be taught a lot of different things, and that's a really good base to have. And so, Christina, do you have, that's a big one. I think we've seen surface.
Yeah, I think those are the two main things. And like I said earlier, I went out and learned something in North Dakota I'd never done before, but just having the willingness to learn and the personality to take advice and get along with people made a big difference. But really, I think that one of our big focuses skill-wise is technology and how to use technology, because if you follow the news at all, and I'm sure that you just live it on a daily basis, is that things are changing, and they're changing more rapidly than our colleges, our companies, our country our world can deal with. And so and reskilling and retraining people is a really big issue, and that it's not just in rural areas. I just think the rural areas are, if we don't do something or if something is not done, they're going to get left behind in this. It's really the third industrial revolution, right? So we're not leaving people behind. We're taking them with us.
amazing.
But I think the one thing about rural America, and I think always bringing it back, is that people forget that there's amazing people, and to live in a rural community, you have to have a special kind of grit and passion and work ethic, because sometimes survival means getting out and chopping wood at 5 in the morning, and then delivering a baby cow at 6, and getting the kids to school and cooking breakfast. So, and you have to be creative. You can't just run to the grocery store or the hardware store. You have to think things through and plan and be creative. And so even just life in a rural area can breed a certain I believe that there'll be a lot of survival within the tech world because the rural life breeds a different mindset in some ways. So
Great, great. Julia, anything else on your end, or was that it?
I believe there are many questions popping up, and we could go for hours, but I think we can summarize those questions and send to Christina and Heather later on. And for today, I believe we just can summarize it and finish the webinar.
okay.
Perfect. Thank you. So again, Christina and Heather, I think both of you are doing an amazing job with this initiative and creating Rural Synergy Foundation and all the efforts and every small seed you plant, even though slowly or not as fast as we would like to. I know it's just the two of you right now trying to go up and beyond and trying to make this really move faster. It's really something that's going to create an impact in society. And again, it's economic sustainability, and so this is going to really help rural communities. And I believe this could potentially be replicated in different countries around the world. And it's a really great initiative. So we appreciate every single comment, insight, advice you had to us. Everyone here learns in a sprint a little bit more about what you do and what they can learn from you. And obviously, we have our contact there. We can share with people that attended the webinar as well. And in case they want more questions or they want to get in touch with you or see how they can collaborate, I want to make sure we do make that that approach and that link. And so on my end, thank you so much for being here today. We're very happy to have you on board and happy to be in touch again with you guys. So Julia, I don't know if you have any last words for them.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting, and I believe your work is becoming more and more important given that there are more people who are living in the urban area, so we need more and more skilled people in the rural area so that we would have this very balanced countries and balanced standard of living.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. So with that, I think it's a wrap. And so thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye bye, Heather. Bye bye now.